This is the Out of Step Reader with a short book talk / recommendation on A Year with the Sages, Wisdom on the Weekly Torah portion by Rabbi Reuven Hammer. I apologize for background noise. I'm in a state that is currently experiencing a tropical storm or a hurricane, depending on whom you listen to. This book by Rabbi Reuven Hammer, I'm a fan of his work in general. This book is really, really accessible no matter what your level of knowledge is about the Bible, the Torah, specifically the 5 books of Moses, Genesis through Deuteronomy, the way Jews interpret Scripture, the way that any religion interprets Scripture. This book is very accessible. It breaks down the Parshat HaShavua, the weekly Torah portion that's read in the synagogues. Every fall we start with Genesis and then we go all the way through Deuteronomy. It looks at each week's portion. Each portion has a name based off of the significant word that appears in the text. So for instance, this week's Torah portion is called Chukat, which can be translated as ordinances, or some people say decrees. This text uses the term ritual law, which I like for emphasizing what kind of teaching this is. And it looks at the way the sages, the people who developed modern rabbinic Judaism, the earliest rabbis and proto-rabbis, how they interpreted the weekly Torah portion, their insight. And I think that this book is good. If you're a Christian, you should definitely read this book, because it would give you an insight into the interpretive tradition of a text that you share with the Jewish people. If you're Jewish, obviously you should read it, because it gives you insight into how our earliest pioneering forefathers interacted with the Torah, the way that they interpreted it, the way that they drew ideas out from the text, and how it shaped the modern expression of Judaism. I think anyone who's curious about the Bible would benefit from this text. And I personally believe that everyone who speaks English or lives in the West should be curious about the Bible. You don't have to be a religious believer. You don't have to affirm any type of value other than to acknowledge that the Bible has impacted your civilization, your literature, your culture. And I think that this gives a very small opening to understand the way one particular tradition has interpreted the Bible. And it's a particular tradition that I don't think outside of the realm of observant Judaism most people, Jewish or non-Jewish, are aware of. I think that it opens the door, or it's so accessible that, you really don't have to know much. It just kind of previews the way, or ways, because it's very diverse, that the sages dealt with the text of the Torah, and how they brought out and drew out and searched out ideas that were relevant not only to their times, but that were relevant for everyday life. And they are, surprisingly or not surprisingly, depending on your view of history, very relevant ideas for living in today's world. So once again, that is A Year with the Sages, Wisdom on the Weekly Torah portion by Rabbi Reuven Hammer, published recently by the Jewish Publication Society. I highly recommend it.